Happy Mercury Day, Collective. I want to just hop on here for a minute and show everyone a chart that you're looking at here. I'm using this little dowel rod. I'm outside in my backyard. This is the first thing I could find. So this is a chart of tomorrow's new moon. You may or may not be aware, but tomorrow, June 6th, 2024, at 8:37 a.m. On the East Coast of the United States, we are going to have a new moon in Gemini. Now, the reason I want to talk about this is, well, for a couple reasons. One, well, it is Mercury Day, and Mercury is the ruler of Gemini, and there's nothing more mercurial than learning something new, and especially with this buildup of planets right here. This is Jupiter, this is Mercury, so it's in its sign of rulership, and we have the moon and the sun right next to each other. And I think this is important because a lot of people have never seen a birth chart wheel. In this case, it would be an event chart. So this is the quality of the moment of the new moon. So if someone was born at this moment, this would be their birth chart. But right here, we've made a chart, a snapshot of the quality of the moment of the Gemini new moon tomorrow morning. And then right here is Venus. So anytime you have a new moon, what it's going to look like on a chart is the moon and the sun right next to each other. And so if I were looking at someone's birth chart and I see their sun and moon conjunct, that tells me right away that they're born on or near a new moon. Now, when you have a full moon, it's the illumination. It's like the culmination point, and that's going to look like the sun right here in the case of the last full moon that we had in Sagittarius, and then the moon exactly opposite on the axis, we call this. So this right here, that's why I've highlighted this. This is the Gemini Sagittarius axis. This is an important, the axis is an important thing to become familiar with when it comes to the energies of the archetypes of the zodiac wheel, because you might look at them as two sides of the same coin. So, in other words, Gemini and Sagittarius energy is the same kind of energy. It's the same coin, but it's two different manifestations of it, much like the Leo and Aquarius axis, much like the Taurus and Scorpio axis, much like the Virgo and Pisces axis. And then lastly, you got Aries up here and Libra. That's where we had the solar eclipse. This was the axis of the solar eclipse. So what's really interesting about this year's lunation cycles thus far, um, that I really want to point out because it's very unusual, is that normally we have the new moon and the full moon going one after the other on the same axis. So what do I mean by that? Normally, we would expect to see a new moon in Gemini followed by a full moon in Sagittarius on this side. Actually, what ended up happening is um, on May 23rd, so obviously a date that has already passed, that was the Sagittarius full moon. So what's interesting about that is when you have a full moon on the axis preceding the new moon on that axis, if we're gonna take a broader look at it and like look at it in terms of like the more conceptual, you might actually call that sort of like an illumination back on May 23rd of the solution or the answer before you even had a chance to create the intention or the question. Because new moons are generally associated with setting intentions, like seed planting. It's quite literally plant a new seed, write down your intentions, or state them to yourself, or write them in a journal, whatever. That's what we associate new moon energy with. And like in the sky, it's dark. The moon is blocked out, so it's when you look at like a chart, it's usually just a dark. Like when you see a circle and it's dark, that indicates a new moon. So when you're looking at a full moon depicted in like an almanac or something like that, it's going to be like a circle that's usually white to indicate full, like brightness, illumination, the max point of the energy in the sky. So, if you really want to get a little bit magical and witchy about it, you would set intentions on a new moon, and then on the culmination point, the full moon is when you would want to like manifest. It's like almost tapping into like the power of the. That's when you would put out, crystals or something that you would want the lunar energy to be of benefit to. Some people like to even do like moon water. They'll put some water out in some glass jars and like put it under the full moonlight, and I guess with the right frame of mind and with the intention of absorbing all the good lunar energy that's built up from the last 2 weeks since the new moon. That's what we associate full moon energy with. It's culmination. It's like max energy of the energy of the moon. So for the entire first half of 2024, starting with the very first lunation of the year, which was a new moon in Capricorn, every new moon and full moon has been off axis. And so, what do I mean by that? The first, so I said the new moon, the first lunation of this year was here. This is Capricorn. And we had a new moon in Capricorn at like 20 degrees, 44 minutes. So, under the rules that I've stated about the lunations being on the same axis, new moon here, full moon here, new moon here, full moon here, vice versa, whatever. Um, Starting from the very beginning of this year, it's been off axis. So we had the new moon here, but then the very first full moon of this year was not in Cancer; it was in Leo. So everything has been. There have been a lot of reasons why you might have felt like out of whack for the very first half of 2024. I'm sure everyone's got their own stories. But if you're looking for a really simple, like sort of collective energy that has been off, um, when it comes to the moon cycles, which we all are subject to every 2 weeks, every single moon cycle this year has been off axis. Now, why I'm getting on here and telling you this now, aside from it being really fascinating, is that this will actually be corrected um, on the summer solstice. So the next, like I said, here, May 23rd, we had our Sagittarius full moon. If you can, look back to May 23rd, and if there was any sort of like insights that kind of came to you without even being like searching for them, or just some sort of like stroke of brilliance, or maybe even an idea that came to you, like a creative idea, or some sort of like inkling that you had about something and you don't really know where it came from, it would be a good time to revisit that and see if maybe where we are with this Gemini new moon, if you can find almost this like retroactive like effect going on, like to where something popped up here May 23rd, that now that we're here with the Gemini new moon, you find yourself feeling a little bit more empowered to like articulate your desire in that respect. So I put here just to illustrate the, I guess, course correction that we're going to experience pretty soon. The next full moon following this Gemini new moon, so of course it's always like a 2 weeks approximately separation. The next full moon is, of course, going to be off axis because we already had our Sagittarius lunation. So it's going to be at the very beginning of Capricorn, 1 degree, 7 minutes. That will be on June 21st, 2024. And as you probably already know, that is the summer solstice. So that itself is a pretty significant thing, given like, the summer solstice itself marking the beginning of the season of summer, and it being our bridge into Cancer season. Um, so what is really cool about this is after our June 21st full moon, then we can look forward to, let me look at my ephemeris here. On July 5th, we're going to have our new moon here in Cancer. And that's going to be at 14 degrees, 23 minutes. So about around the midpoint, just short of the midpoint. Um, and then we're going to have another full moon in Capricorn, except it will be at the end. And that will be the marking of the course correction. So we'll have our new moon July 5th in Cancer. And then on July 21st, so exactly 1 month after the first full moon in Capricorn, we're going to have another full moon in Capricorn at 29 degrees, so the very last degree, and 9 minutes. And that will be on July 21st. And then every lunation for the rest of the year will be on the axis. Like, so we'll have a new moon in Leo on August 4th. And then on August 19th, we're going to have our full moon in Aquarius on the other side of the axis. Um, and so on and so forth. You know, we'll have Virgo, a Virgo new moon. And then on the other side of the axis, we'll have a Pisces full moon. And that will actually mark on September 17th. That's going to be another eclipse. We're going to have a partial lunar eclipse September 17th. We'll get to that later because that's quite a bit down the road when it comes to like lunation cycles. But I wanted to illustrate this because a lot of people, one, have never even seen a chart. And when I talk about the axis, like, oh, the Leo Aquarius axis, the Pisces Virgo axis, and I describe them as like the same energies, like two sides of the same coin. At best, you know, if you've never seen a wheel, you're maybe just following me conceptually. But I hope by showing like more of this, you can start to get this picture of like what an access point is. And if you're like a creative or you're artistically inclined, or if you can like use reference points like a color wheel. So the common wisdom for like designers or decorators or people that work in the arts, when you're looking for like a color palette, you know, you would look at the opposite side of the wheel, and as well as like on either side of like a color. So if this is a color wheel and I like this color, what would be a nice contrasting color, like a different color but in the same of the same energy, you might say, I would go directly across the wheel on the axis. Or if I wanted just like, you know, sort of a monotone thing of complementary shades of the color I like, then I would go here and here. So that would be similar to how we're looking at a chart wheel, an event, or a birth, or whatever. So what I want to end with, I guess, with this Gemini new moon is um, we always look in terms of like getting a picture of the archetypal energy that will color any illumination. We look at where is the ruling planet of the sign where it's going to take place. So in this case, it's Mercury. It is Gemini's ruled by Mercury. Mercury is in its home sign of Gemini. So it's going to be a very mercurial new moon. And especially since it's still, it's like a 4 degree orb. What I mean by that is like Jupiter is only 4 degrees away from Mercury. So these two energies are kind of what we would call like touching one another. They're affecting one another. Um, and Jupiterian energy is this is the ruling sign, as it turns out, of Sagittarius, or the ruling planet, I should say. So when you put Jupiter, anytime you have a planet in its opposite sign from rulership, so um, in this case, Jupiter being opposite of where it belongs in Sagittarius, it's technically considered debilitated because Jupiterian energy likes to go. Jupiterian energy is like the scholar, like it's optimistic and broad-minded, and it wants to like really study something for mastery. It's like higher level education, becoming like an expert in something. And when you put it in Gemini is like the dabbler. Gemini's curious. Gemini, um, it's childlike and it's playful. It's like the jack of all trades because it wants to dip its toe in the water of all kinds of things. You know, there's like a lot of stuff going on here too. So all of these planetary energies in Gemini, it's kind of giving that flavor of like, I want to try everything. I want to do everything. I want to like do this little bit, but I don't want to stick with it for too long because I also want to try this. Whereas Jupiter, it's like, whoa, whoa, it's expansive. It's like it wants to really get in the depth and master something. So um, it's all what you make of it, obviously. I mean, I happen to like Jupiter in Gemini for reasons that I don't know if you're somebody that likes to dabble and you like, you know, you have a creative mind and you love like thoughts coming. You like to take inspiration from all kinds of different things, like picking up this book and turning to a certain page, and then picking up this other book, and then like playing with tarot cards, and then like playing with plants. cooking with food, if you like to get your hands in on things and then sort of draw your own unique creative inspiration from a broad range of things, then Jupiter in Gemini is great. But there is, of course, like a balance all the time. Like um, at a certain point, you are going to have to like not be too cerebral. Like the thing about Gemini is it's the air sign that kind of is like up in the clouds. So we've got three air signs. We've got Gemini, we've got Libra, and then we've got Aquarius. Um, Gemini is like the fast moving air energy. Gemini is like it rules cars and commerce and fast moving communications. Like texting would be Gemini energy. Um, it's sort of like an overlap too, especially like Aquarius and Gemini have very similar energies. Aquarian energy, if Gemini were to rule traveling through cars and trains, like more point A to point B, or like a high speed rail or something, Aquarius would be like the hot air balloon. It would be like that sort of spark of spark of lightning idea that's never been done before, and now all of a sudden we're up in the sky in a balloon. That's like Aquarian travel. Some people would call air travel Gemini. It's not wrong to say that. I kind of look at air travel as like also sort of maybe it would be sort of a Venn diagram sort of thing. Like there is some overlap with Aquarian energy when it comes to like the innovation aspect of air travel. So um, one day's innovative method of travel just becomes like the next generation's well established version, and therefore it might become more of like a Gemini thing, if that makes sense. So um, the air energy is strong, as you can see. We've got this buildup. This is what we call in astrology a stellium. So if someone were born tomorrow and like down the road they had their chart done, you would go, "Oh my, this is a very Gemini chart." A stellium is anytime you have three or more planets in one sign. So when I look at people's charts, it's really interesting sometimes too, because say you were born say you were born with your sun in Cancer, but all these other planets, you have like three or four other planets in Gemini, it might actually end up being a way more Gemini sort of archetype that flavors that person's persona in life, and method of communication and learning style than Cancerian energy. So it's really like a kind of totality view of things. It really just nothing is just your sun sign or just your moon sign or your rising. That's what this is. This is the ascendant. This is what we call rising. So this means that at the exact moment of the new moon tomorrow, we will have Cancer rising on the eastern. It'll be the sign on the eastern horizon at the moment of the new moon at 21 degrees. Um, and so this would be, if someone was born at that exact moment, this would be their rising sign and rising degree. Um, so I think that covers everything. One thing I do want to point out too is, as you may or may not know, Pluto is still in Aquarius. It's retrograde now, but because it is an outer planet, it moves quite slowly. So it's been hovering around 1 degree for a minute now. It won't, as it continues to go kind of backwards, it will dip into Capricorn one last time. And I don't think that that's going to happen until I want to say September, beginning of September. And then it will be at that anaretic degree, or what we call the final degree, 29 degrees of Capricorn, once more from, I want to say September to November, before finally stationing direct and like staying in Aquarius for the next 20 years. It will no longer be dipping back into Capricorn. So we have, the reason I'm even talking about Pluto is because it's affecting anytime you have all of this in an air sign. And since this is an air sign, Aquarius, these two energies are what we call trine. It's a harmonious exchange of energy um, when it's an air sign, a placement or placements here and a placement here in another air sign. Same here with Libra. If we were to have something in Libra and then all these things in Gemini, we would call those energies trine. And depending on how tightly the degrees are, or what we would call the orb, that will tend to increase the effect of that harmonious exchange. So in this case, we've got Pluto in just a sign based trine to all of these energies, most directly to Jupiter, which is at 2 degrees of Gemini. And so we've got a 1 degree, 50 minutes. That's pretty close to 2 degrees. And then we've got Jupiter at 2 degrees, 42 minutes at the moment of this full moon. So that's a pretty tight orb still. So you still have that flavor of Jupiter and Pluto in a harmonious exchange of energy. And so Jupiterian energy, expansive, optimistic, um, broad-minded, um, sort of like you might even associate it with like spirituality. Um, then when you combine that with the energy of Pluto, which is death and rebirth, but more commonly in like the internal sense. It's like a regeneration, sort of blowing up the old way of doing things in a lot of cases, and sort of reinventing, reinventing yourself, reinventing your way of going about things, reinventing how you structure your life. So try to keep the energy of Pluto in mind, um, when you're experiencing this new moon energy. And I would guess that you probably haven't been able to escape that energy anyways, regardless of if you are listening to me now or knew anything about this. Um, Maybe find comfort in hearing me say that if you can't seem to escape the call to transform in some way, um, that's not accidental. That is a collective energy that we are all subject to right now. Um, and most especially with this buildup of all these planets in Gemini in a sign based trine to Pluto, the great transformer, the great sort of bringing up what's beneath the surface. So, in a lot of our cases, trauma, repressed feelings, repressed grief, revisiting something to where you're like, why is this coming up again? It's coming up again for everybody. And what that thing coming up again is very much depends on you. But I have yet to meet somebody that doesn't have something uh, that couldn't stand to be revisited and maybe like processed a little more thoroughly and dealt with. Move through it, and it eventually gets easier. So Gemini, that's the thing. It's like don't take it too seriously. Like be curious instead of like looking at what feels like unknown, um, which would be a way to describe these like off-axis lunations. Um, it's not accidental that everything feels sort of novel, like in a like a sometimes exciting way, but like sometimes like what's going on? I'm scared. I don't have any bearings. Um, Maybe try to use the energy of Gemini, like the curiosity and the playfulness of Gemini, to add a little bit of levity to the whole thing, if you can do that. So I hope this helps, and I might do another card pool. Collective card pull just to see what comes out for the collective energies of the Gemini new moon. Until next time, everyone take care and write down your intentions. One thing about Gemini, it rules the hands. And so there might be something you will find to your benefit. You might as well try it. Worst case scenario, you'll just find yourself writing down things more and like crystallizing them for yourself. But um, it might be worth a try to write some things down. Don't filter them, just free flow, write them down, um, write down your intentions, and use your hands more. Engage your hands creatively, get your hands on things, participate and interact with the people and the world around you. Until next time.